Good evening and welcome to Metro. My name is Joe Shanahan, and I've been standing on this stage for about 40 years. And this is one of these nights where I just look around and I see so many incredible faces. People that have worked here, people that have attended shows here, DJs, security people, managers. I just want to welcome you all to the celebration of life for Dave Roberts. Let's give it up. I have a few things that I want to say, and I talked about this on the radio the other day. Dave Roberts, a pivotal DJ, a community leader, a independent venue operator, and all who knew him knew his good taste and flawless taste in music. So, Planet Earth, fact number one, was launched at NEO in 1994. So, you do the math on that, that's a long time ago. And so, he never turned back after that. It was just fast forward. It was just going forward, and he would spin at Smart Bar, and he would spin all over the city, of course, ending over at Lake Bar. So, another quick story is the one that I have about when Wax Trax and Metro were celebrating the 33 and a third anniversary of the Wax Trax. I am sure that most of you, if not all of you, either were part of it or were here for it. And that particular celebration was really about two guys that ran a label and a record store. So Julia Nash and I hatched this crazy plan, and we began to think about what DJs would be open for a band like Front 242, which is an international industrial juggernaut. And that job went to Dave Roberts. Because he knew that genre so well. But also, he opened for the Subhumans, Toy Dolls, and the Vandals. So he knew this punk rock thing, knew this new wave thing, and this industrial thing. So his wide ability and able to work within a genre across all musical styles was something that I applaud him for. So I ask us all, why are we here? We are here to celebrate the life and the community that Dave brought together. It's quite amazing to be standing here thinking about a guy that, really served this community. We talk about family these days, but he really served this community in such a profound way. I mean, gave of himself night after night after night, not always getting paid a lot of money, but he loved playing records, he loved his music. I think that's really a commendable and an important thing to mention here. I want to thank a couple of people before I move on. First and foremost, Kristine Hengl. This is a beautiful woman. You've all seen her at shows and at gigs. She's an amazing woman. This is cathartic for her as well, of course. I also need to thank Stephen Wagner for the steady hand on the rudder as we came to this night. Stephen's an amazing guy. If you don't know him, he's just a calm, cool, collected guy and knows how to get stuff done. Kind of like Dave Roberts. So I just have to say that there are a few other people that I'd like to mention real quickly, and that is the organizers. Obviously Stephen Wagner, Elizabeth Stroll, Kristine Hengl, Ben Palvin, Dave All, Ray May, Rosen, come on, give it up for Ray May. The DJs, Suzanne Shelton, Greg House, Jeff Moyer, Colleen from the Late Bar, James Terry, and Matthew from the Late Bar. I really think, yes, the organizers, the ones that really put the pedal to the metal to make this happen. My staff, Kelly Way, Robert Brooks, Haley, thank you all for this. It is my absolute pleasure just to take a minute and just remember we're here to celebrate someone's life and someone's giving back to this community. I'm so flattered to be and honored to be standing here, but I also have the pleasure of introducing Dave Roberts' brother, Tim Roberts.
Good evening, everybody. Is that on? Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Roberts family who are here, I'd like to welcome you here. Thank you for honoring our brother, whom we miss and whom we love, and kind of shocked by everything that has happened to us and to him, of course. Standing here, I'm thinking, say something important. But Dave had a better answer for that. It was play something important. And he did for many, many years. I wanted to just tell you a couple little stories about Dave and our family. Our father was a Methodist minister, mostly on the north side here. And our mother was a nurse, so that was the kind of household we grew up in. And there were 7 of us, 7 kids. The youngest 3, Dave was the 6th of 7. And the youngest 3 were born in 3 successive Novembers. Talk about late 50s baby boom. Yes. And we were preachers' kids from Chicago. And that's how we grew up, and we mostly lived not far from here. And we loved this area, and we loved that. When Dave was born in 1958, he made a big impression on our household right away. He was an interesting baby. When he was, my mother or my father would put him up for a nap in his crib, he would be furious about that, and he would be raging, and he would rock his crib back and forth across the room. And we would be downstairs listening to this. So he was rocking and raging from an early age. And he never stopped. I mentioned that we were preachers' kids, and back in those days, preachers' kids were often called PKs. And there another there you go. Another PK kind of figured into our lives, and that was a guy named Philip K. Wrigley, P.K. Wrigley, who owned the Cubs. And we didn't know him, we didn't care about him, but Dave was the greatest Cubs fan, and he just loved that team. And I used to ask him about how the usually hapless Cubs were doing, and he was endlessly optimistic about that. For such a punk rock guy, his optimism about the Cubs, for God's sake, was kind of hard to understand. Dave came into his own, really, when the long-haired 60s ended and the flat-top 70s and 80s began. Now, our father was noted for the flat top that he wore most of his life. And so when Dave went to his own flat top, it was following up in his father's footsteps in that hirsute way. And but my father never dyed his flat top. That was a difference. Let me wrap up with just one final set of a sad story to go on top of this sad story. About 18 months ago, our youngest brother, Jeff, died of cancer. So in the last 18 months, we've lost our 2 youngest siblings. Jeff was a Methodist minister, and I started to think, what did they have in common? Because when they were kids, they were only a year apart. They were these 2 blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boys who were frequently mistaken for twins. But as they grew up, and when they grew up, their paths diverged considerably. Dave moved into music and clubs and everything that he did so well for so long. Jeff went to work for the National Security Agency in Washington, D.C. Both had very distinguished careers. Later, Jeff and Jeff's wife Lori and his sons Ian and Andrew are here tonight. He quit the federal government and he went to seminary and he became a minister himself and was a wonderful minister for many years. So we have Dave on the club scene and Jeff in churches. Those were the two worlds. But in the last week I've been thinking about this and that they were more alike than one might think. They both had their followings, let me say congregations, their congregations. Both were involved in, let me say this right, they both were involved in providing joy and fellowship. And the more I thought about it, the more their paths had not diverged. So, we've had these two tragedies in our life, and yet we remember them both fondly, and remember the service they provided to you all. I was happy to hear Joe's talk about the service they provided to the community. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. You know, I came to think of that the DJ was the high priest. And I say that as a Protestant. But he was the high priest indeed. And our brother Jeff was a fine, fine preacher and minister. Let me just introduce you to my brothers and sisters who are here. My brother Bill, our oldest sibling. My sisters Sally and Lynn. And then we have a brother John who lives in Rockford who is not here tonight, but wishes he could have been. We also have, I mentioned Ian and Andrew. We have Josh and Elizabeth, my brother Bill's kids. We have other in-laws here. The whole family is here to share the honor that you are offering to our brother Dave. So thank you for being here. Thank you. Let me introduce now a performer, a writer, and he said, make sure to add Dave's biggest fan, Dave Hall.
Some of you have already read a much longer and more verbose version of this online. Consider this the weird imported 7-inch remix version that only Dave Roberts would have had in his collection. As many of you know, Dave's life was changed in the summer of 1977 when he traveled to London after graduating from high school to buy records and shoes, and he wound up seeing live shows by some of the earliest punk bands, including the Sex Pistols, the Jam, the Stranglers, the Damned, and of course the Clash. In fact, if Dave were a Marvel superhero, his secret origin would be something like teenager visits London and gets bitten by a radioactive Joe Strummer. But I often thought of Dave as being a kind of magician. Yes. In fact, I once wrote a poem, only slightly tongue-in-cheek, that compared Dave to a wizard casting spells high up in his tower. Dave practiced his magical arts in a number of ways. He had a supernatural sense of timing and an ability to keep the dance floor packed by sensing what the crowd wanted to hear, almost as if he had ESP. He had an alchemist's ability to combine different kinds of music into a mix of songs that was somehow wonderfully familiar and yet also full of surprises. In fact, one of the things that always amazed me is that despite the fact that he always knew exactly what needed to be played next, for the entire time I knew him, Dave took requests. It's like if Kandinsky let you stand behind him while he was painting and look over his shoulder and go, hey, how about a little bit bit of green right there. And Dave would not only add in the green, somehow he would still make the whole thing work together. Dave had a keen eye for who was in the room, and he always knew who was on the floor and which regulars were lurking by the walls waiting for a song they loved to dance to. If he'd talked to you long enough to know your taste, he'd sometimes play songs just for you. In fact, sometimes you'd run into him in the bathroom, and he'd kind of, a little sloshed, tell you he was about to do that. I'm gonna play a lot of stuff for you. I'm gonna play a lot of stuff for you. And he would. Although sometimes maybe it would happen 2 weeks later. But I got to the point where I never needed to make requests. Because when Dave saw me in the room, he'd just start reading my mind and playing the songs he knew I wanted to dance to. I called it his psychic DJ trick. Yes. And sometimes, more often than seems statistically likely, Dave would go one step better than just playing the song you wanted to hear and play the song you actually needed to hear, without your even consciously realizing that you needed to hear it. And when you got home, you'd play that song 6 more times in a row. Dave would also do this thing where he'd use his mystical DJ powers to drag you back onto the dance floor when you were getting ready to leave. You'd have your coat and your scarf on, steps away from the door, and suddenly there was that song, that one song you couldn't resist, and you'd go running back to the dance floor. And maybe you'd wind up calling in late to work the next morning. I know it wasn't just me, I saw it happen to other people too. More psychic DJ tricks. But maybe the most magical thing Dave did was that he created a space where the subculture of outsiders and misfits who loved the new wave and punk music of the late 70s and 80s could celebrate that music by dancing all night and also connect with each other to form a community of friends, breathing life back into that subculture. In the process, Dave helped preserve the history of Chicago's punk and new wave scene, and he mentored and inspired a new generation of DJs to embrace that sense of style and carry it forward. At this point, I just want to add how much I have loved being part of this community over the past 25 years, the community that Dave and Kristine created together, and how it's changed my life. I know I'm not the only one here who gets by with a little help from the friends that they made on the Planet Earth dance floor. His magician staff may now be buried certain fathoms in the earth, but I think the ripple effects of the magic that Dave Roberts created will continue long into the future. So this is a poem from my book, What the Sea Means, which was published in 2002. The DJ considered as mage for Dave Roberts and Kristine. The celebrants arrive in the clearing for their revels, an urban glade of brick and graffiti, ripped up linoleum, wax-stained carpet. The sacraments they receive are liquid sound and light, scintillations and flashings in time and space, the removal of certain barriers and limits upon motion. From behind a glass window above the magic circle, like a sorcerer in his tower, he takes spells from his grimoire, spins them into lightning and wine. Mirrors and lasers for his wizard's fire, gobos and strobes, his arcane apparatus, chemical smoke for the mists he must raise. He makes it all leap, whirling and sparking into a system of interlocking hermetic gestures, a divine clockwork of light, rhythm, and melody. The rapture of the dancers transmuting base metal into a golden thread of ephemeral, but nonetheless transcendent evenings. And the revelers are taken, and the gates to the next world thrown open, and the hours dissolve into ocean, Neptune's ballroom. time a lattice of star sparkle, a cup dipped into the dark river of memory and oblivion. We climb out through a small door in the skull, leave it reluctantly open for the return hours later, when the mage must close his circle, when the storm dissolves and the bric-a-brac whirled up to the heavens is thrown back down, gasping, sweating, exalted, looking for diner food and a bus ride home. It's my job now to introduce someone who really needs no introduction. Kristine is, I don't know how to put it into words, but she was in many ways the heart and soul of planet Earth for so many years. She was Dave's partner, his collaborator. I said that sometimes when you got to listen to the two of them talk, it was like hearing twin language, because they were so in sync and they had such a vibe. And I also believe that Kristine brought something really important to Dave to help balance out his genius with a kind of structure that really helped him thrive. Kristine was there for him all the way along, and she made, in many ways, a lot of his journey possible. And I am endlessly grateful to Kristine, and I know so many others are as well. So please, welcome the one and only Kristine Hengl.
Thanks. I didn't prepare anything. I've been thinking about it, and it's very, very simple. I first want to thank Joe and the staff at Metro for their kindness and being so gracious and their professionalism tonight. Because you older people can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. I also, my family, the Roberts family, especially Lynn Roberts, thank you. And I want to thank all of you. Dave would be so happy right now to see all of you. And I'm going to tell you a story. So Dave's never left me. We got him a rocker recliner. He sat in my kitchen a lot through the pandemic. And when all of this happened and he didn't want to go to the doctor, I had two things that I could do to get Dave to do what I wanted him to do. And one was, what would your father think? That worked. But I had a secret weapon, and it was, do you want me to call Lynn? And Lynn always came. And she was the one that brought him to the ER with me, and it was very fast. But I got to spend a lot of time with him in the hospital, and I would sit there all day, and he was in incredible pain, and he was on a lot of drugs. And people that know Dave know he liked liquor, he drank a lot, he liked his whiskey and his beer, but he was never a drug user. So seeing Dave on morphine was a very unusual experience. he'd be laying there. I couldn't get him to eat. And then he's just laying there and he's going like this. Dave? What are you doing? I'm eating Raisinets. Raisinets? You've never, okay. And then it was sort of turning into this, he was, and it was just so surreal to see him, and I'm like, Dave, where are you? I'm on the Enterprise. He was a child of the 60s, and he loved Star Trek. So, this has been painful. I'm overwhelmed. I appreciate every one of you for being here. I will try to hug every one of you because I want to, but my relationship with Dave was, he was the world to me. So. So you're at a Dave Roberts memorial service, and of course there's going to be a Clash song. It's Joe. So we're gonna play a Clash song, and he's not here to do it, so I thought maybe we could do it all together. You all know what we have to say, right? All right. A 1, a 2, a 3. This is the only band that matters. This is a Clash.
Now get Bob, there's no way you can take the Ravenswood train going south and get up to Sheridan Road. You just can't happen. It makes no sense at all.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in the most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today.